This podcast is brought to you by the Goosebumps Crew podcast. Hand by Revival, Book 1 of the Unveiled book series.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Arete Podcast. Today, I have a very, very new and special friend, my friend Allie, who you may recognize if you follow our podcast network as the host of Literature and Lingerie. How are you doing today, Allie?
I'm doing great, thank you.
So, can you take a moment for those who don't know and for some reason aren't listening to or watching your show? Can you tell everyone watching a little bit about your show and what you do?
So on my show, I do novel deep dives where I will choose a book, most like right now, books out of copyright. We will go over the chapter and then we will discuss a little bit about the characters, the story, the plot, and that sort of thing, and break it down into more of a detailed from a writer's perspective. So things I noticed, and then yeah, that's pretty much
So,
what I do.
kind of like it's
Kind of
not
like a
really a lecture.
novel. It's kind of like a novel deep dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will talk about like plot devices, how the writer is portraying the characters, and the things that we can learn about the character through the actions that they're doing. Right now, we're going through a Nancy Drew book, and that sort of thing. And then I also do poetry, sometimes on Thursdays when I have time to put out extra videos. And that I will pick a poet, we'll read a couple of their poems, and then we'll sort of discuss the imagery and what the writer is trying to tell us through the poetry, some of the mechanics of poetry and things like that.
So wait, are the Nancy Drew books in the public domain right now?
So in Canada,
Ah,
because of it's 50 years after the author died, there's actually three Nancy Drew books that are in the public domain, which
hmm,
is book, I think, 7, 8, and 9, because the author died in the 1950s, I think, or something like that. So those three are in the public domain. In the United States, I think next year in 2026, the first three books will be in the public domain.
nice.
So
Yeah,
because of the different rules, yeah, it's like
yeah.
a little bit different.
Copyright law is complicated is not a strong enough word. Like it- there's a
Yeah.
reason multiple lawyers are consulted before something is officially in the public domain,
Yes.
which in the United States, I'm sure well, it might be the same in Canada because it's Disney, but a few Disney works entered the public domain last year, first of which being
Yeah.
Steamboat Willie.
Actually, the reason why the public domain is different in the United States is because of Disney. They
That's
didn't
true.
want Willie to be in the public domain, so they pushed and lobbied for the copyright law to be extended. I think
Hmm.
it's plus 70 years in the US now, whereas in Canada, we're still with the Commonwealth, so it's
Yeah.
still plus 50.
Right. The way it shook out, I think that Steamboat Willie ended up being under copyright protection for 90 some odd years because of the extension. But I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think in well, before they changed it, I think it was plus 50 years here as well.
it
But
was. It was, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But then, like
So
you said, so thank you, Disney.
Disney is a very powerful company and they usually get what they want.
So that being said, obviously you're a big fan of Nancy Drew.
I am, I read them when I was a kid, around grade 3. I think I started getting into Nancy Drew, and I was set like on a mission to read every single Nancy Drew book. Obviously, I couldn't because of the limitations of being 10 years old and technology not, being what it is today. But I did read every single Nancy Drew book available in the public libraries in the like two cities near
Nice.
me. I
Nice.
was so determined to
No,
read everyone.
yeah, no, I think just about every kid eventually finds a book series that kind of opens the door, so to speak. Because for me, it
Yeah.
was the Animorphs book series. Thank you, Scholastic Book Fair. I don't
I
know what I would have done
remember
without you.
those were so popular. Yeah, when I was a kid, lots of people I knew read them.
Yeah, and I feel like such a fool because now I have four, I only have six books. I had the whole collection,
Oh,
and
wow.
like an idiot, I sold them because I didn't think I would
Oh,
want them anymore. I
right.
I can't even tell you what my frame of mind was because now I found out this particular book, which is honestly my favorite of the series. This is the one that got me into it because a random friend at summer camp let me borrow it, and I was bored.
That's how it always starts.
Um, Found out this book because what this is actually three books in one. But when they
Okay.
were, back when they sold physical media for
Right. I
everything.
remember going to that one multi-purpose room at school. They had like all the books on all the tables for the Scholastic Book Fair, and you
Oh
would
yeah,
find the books that you wanted. You would beg your parents to buy them for you.
oh yeah, with your $20 and your Lamborghini
Yep.
poster. but
Yep.
but they came out with a combo version, which is all three books in one. This book, if you can find it, will run you about $80 USD right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so and just to give you an idea, this originally sold for $6 in the United States.
Wow.
You just can't find them anymore.
Yeah,
But
yeah. If the publisher stops printing them, then they
mhm,
become more and more rare, right?
very, very much so. Fortunately for me, I don't know, do you guys have half price books around where I don't even know if they're in Canada. I think they are, but you probably have something
Like, is
similar.
it a store? Like a
Yeah, it's
store?
a secondhand
Uh,
bookstore.
I don't know if we have chain ones. I do have a few independent
Hmm.
ones, like around where I live.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any actual chains that do it.
Yeah, half price.
I would have to look it up.
If you know, half price books is amazing. I didn't actually realize they were a chain until I've been shopping there for like 2+ years because they do a very good job. Each location is different because people come in and they sell their books at that location. It's not like they get mass orders in at all the stores. So
Right.
you learn where your locations are because if you're looking for something specific, you might have to go to two, three, four stores, however many are
Okay.
close to you.
That makes sense.
Fortunately for me though, Animorphs books are plentiful. It's actually shout out to another podcast, the Goosebumps crew. It's actually Goosebumps books that are really hard to find in half price books because since the revival of the IP, starting with the movies and now
Right.
with the TV show, now the original book series is very heavily sought after, and they've been re-released, but it's not the same. You know what I mean? Different, yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, so those are really quite rare, and our friends over there have made some pretty good scores shopping for those
Nice.
old books. It's fun. It's like a treasure hunt shopping through those
Yeah.
secondhand bookstores. So are Nancy
I
Drew books hard to find?
no. The probably the older versions, but the yellowback ones, which are the revision ones, are pretty easy to find. They're like all over Amazon and
Hmm,
most like bookstores online, you can find them. And if it's not in store, it'll be in their online store.
that's good. So Nancy Drew, easy to find. Is that what really got you into reading and literature then?
Yeah, I remember reading books in school, but yeah, my appetite for literature really got super voracious around the Nancy Drew books. My friend had a quite a large collection, and so I started just borrowing her books. And then when I had read through her books, I went searching for them at the library. And then it just sort of spurred from there. Especially through my teens and 20s, I was always nosing a book. At school, in all of my spare time, before bed, like if I was walking, if I didn't have anything, I was nosing a book.
So you're like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, just constantly
I really was, yeah.
just hopping over structures in the road. It's not losing your spot.
Yeah, I would have people be like, "How do you know where you're walking?" And it's like, "Well, it's called your peripheral vision. You learn how to use it." And they'd be like, "Why aren't you walking into poles?" I was like, "Oh, you just get used to it, I guess." But yeah, I don't know, literature was just something that I always really loved, just escaping into another world and learning about other characters and things like that.
So did your love of reading transfer into How did that affect your adult life? Did it transfer? Obviously, you're doing this, but in
Yeah.
terms of like your career, did that have anything to do with literature? Did you take another path? How did that influence you going forward?
My day job is actually a very practical one. I work in healthcare. I will have a pension at the end. I was very logical when I was looking at potential jobs as an adult. Literature is very much a hobby passion. So I do write. I did take 2 years of writing school where I learned about like screenplay, playwright, fiction, and stuff like that. And then I have stories of my own that I am writing. I have a series that I'm working on, things like
Mhm.
that.
So you heard it here first, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. The series that I swear I'll finish eventually.
Now, obviously, you don't want to tell too much, but like, what's that series, if you don't mind telling us? What's that series kind of sort of about without giving away too much detail because you people got to buy it when it comes out?
So it's a sci-fi fantasy, like, or I guess urban sci-fi fantasy.
Ooh.
It's about a girl who is autistic and she moves to a new city to go to university, and then she ends up being stalked by these like otherworldly creatures, and she ends up meeting these people and they turn out to be elementals, and she, through a series of events, not to like give a bunch of spoilers, but finds out that she might not be completely human.
Hmm.
And so she ends up thrown into this other world with multiple dimensions and other beings out in space, and a organization that is a little shady, a little seedy, that is up to no good. Um, and yeah, she just sort of gets like thrown into it as this like autistic individual trying to navigate through these like new discoveries about herself and new discoveries about, the Earth not being the only planet and all that stuff. So a bit of a coming of age and evil organization takedown kind of story.
Sign me up. That seems awesome. And I'm
So
not just
yeah,
saying that.
I've been working on the series for a long time now. The first book I would consider pretty much done. The second one, I keep being like, I need to sit down and do another, like, one last round of edits before
Mhm.
I think about sending it out to an editor. But, and then the third book which is the final one, is in the process of being written. I just have random chapters and scenes for that book right now.
Oh, okay. So you're working on a trilogy.
Yeah, so well, it started out as one book, and then I realized the story was too big for one book. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just make it two books. And then the story was too big for two books. So I was like, I guess it's a trilogy.
Wow, that's exactly the same thing that happened with the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, that that
um
that that's that's a hilarious story because Tolkien always envisioned it as one book, and then his publisher was like, "No, no, no, this is too big. You got to split this into three." And then when they were, for those who
yeah.
don't know, and then when they were going to make the movie, they were fighting for two. They were told they were going to get one. They were fighting for two, and then when I forget, I think it was Universal. Some anyway, one studio said they passed on it ultimately, and then they went to New Line expecting to beg, and New Line executives were like, wait a minute, there's three books. Why are you trying to make two movies? You
Yeah.
should make three movies. And
Yeah.
they were like, wow. And then that cinema masterpiece was released as everyone intended. So good
Okay.
things.
I had no idea that it was originally only supposed to be one movie.
Originally, it was going to
Imagine,
be, yeah.
yeah, one or two movie. Imagine trying to fit, like, they had a hard enough time fitting it into three movies. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine how much they'd have to cut out to fit that into only two movies.
Well, actually, they did. Ralph Bakshi, which technically it's only the first two books, but they compressed the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers into one movie. And it's bad. There's definitely elements and characters missing, but it's not
Yeah.
a bad flick. It's a victim of I mean, it still looks pretty good, honestly. They did rotoscope animation for it, so
Okay.
it looks pretty decent. But I mean, constraints of technology at the time. It's not a. It kind of looks a little dated now, but I think that's more the rotoscoping rather than the animation quality per se.
Right. Yeah,
Because
that makes sense.
rotoscoping gives a very sort of distinct look. But
Yeah.
thankfully, because for a long time, I don't know if you're a big Tolkien fan, but for a long time, all we had was the animated movies. And then when it was announced they were going to do a live action trilogy, we were all very nervous. Fortunately, within the first 2 minutes, we were like, okay, no, we're good. We're good. They're
Yeah.
not shitting the bed with this. We're good.
Yeah, I feel like the Lord of the Rings movies are probably one of the book to movie adaptations that I can say was done really well.
Exceptionally well. And then they shit the bed with The
Like
Hobbit,
exceptionally.
which is weird because it's the same people. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a victim of
Yeah.
taking one. That should have been one movie, realistically. Every
One movie,
Tolkien fan.
at the most two movies. Like if you think of the Battle of Five Armies in The Hobbit, it is one chapter, and they tried to turn it into an entire movie.
Yeah, it's literally an entire movie
It's
with
it's literally an entire like one chapter. I was like, why?
yeah, it's well, and
So yeah,
it really sort of defeats because again, if you've read Tolkien, which based on what you know about that, I assume you have,
yeah,
Tolkien wasn't a fan of war for
no,
for obvious reasons. So he very much tried to minimize big battle sequences. And I
hmm
understand in a movie you can't just gloss over them necessarily, but specifically the Battle of Five Armies and The Hobbit, that's kind of the point is to gloss
yeah,
over it because Tolkien's point from start to finish in terms of that is how stupid it is. And
yeah,
it would be really, really silly if his whole stick with that area of the book is that war is stupid and then have, an entire movie that I'm not going to say it glorifies war, but I mean a bunch of elves jumping over a shield wall of dwarves to lay waste to goblins is kind of glorifying war.
yeah.
It's kind of
I
hard to
I get
say
what you
this is
mean.
it, yeah, it's kind of hard to say this is bad when they do awesome action composition shots.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
don't
for
do
sure.
this, but we're going to make it look as awesome as possible. Why you would jump over a shield wall, I don't know, but that's beside the point. It's a movie.
Yeah,
But but yeah, so I've seen a fair amount of pretty good book to movie adaptations, and I mean, different mediums. There's always going to be some things missing, and I don't know. Maybe have you read Pride and Prejudice?
yeah. I have. I think I even own two different copies of it.
Gotcha.
Weirdly
So
enough,
my question is, I just got around to watching the movie because it was recommended to me. Um, I've not read the original book, so I don't know
the
how good that adaptation
2005
is.
one,
Yeah, with Keira Knightley and oh God, I always forget his name.
Matthew McFadyen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you have, is
I
that a decent adaptation?
It's a decent adaptation. You get very polarized views from the fandoms. There are the die-hard 1996 Colin, is it
Colin Firth?
Colin Firth?
Farrell?
That's the last name. Yeah, something like that. Diehards, and then you've got the like 2005 like Joe Wright adaptation, like Diehards, and they're very like opposing. Yeah, I think both are very good in their own respective ways because I mean, the 90s version is obviously I think it's a six-part miniseries, and then the
Um,
movie is condensed into 2 hours. I feel like Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadyen really give different aspects of the characters. You really like in Matthew McFadyen's portrayal of Mr. Darcy, you really get that awkward vulnerability the way that he
mhm.
portrays him, which I think is very well done. And I do, when you read the books, I do feel like that is an aspect of Mr. Darcy you don't necessarily see as much in the 90s version. He just gives a different portrayal and a different nuance to why his character acts the way that he does. So,
Yeah, I
again,
enjoyed it.
I don't think either one is better than the other. I honestly think they both bring great things to the book itself and portray it in as best a light as it can, especially like the movie. You can only fit so much in 2 hours.
Sure, fair enough.
But
I
you
will
know,
say
yeah.
it was, for me at least, it was kind of slow in the beginning, but I get it. You're establishing characters. Really, once it's the first time Mr. Darcy asks Elizabeth, uh, I think he asked her to marry him, but in like the very, you know, Victorian way. Is like, I wanna be with you, but we have to get
Oh,
married in order for that to happen. And then
yeah.
she's just like, no,
Yeah,
because
like
he
you've
sabotaged his sister's
insulted
really, yeah.
my family. You, yeah, like sabotaged my sister's like moment, like happiest moment. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. You suck,
Yeah. So
basically.
first of all, great scene, but that's actually a turning point in the pacing of the movie because, and
Yes.
this might be my perception, but from then on, everything not too fast, but everything kind of happens at a, relatively speaking, a much faster pace. So that's when I really got into it. And then from that moment on, Darcy is basically just trying to right all the wrongs. And
Yeah.
his character, first of all, his character shines in every scene he's in, which is on purpose. They want you to notice him. But it was such a great performance. And Keira Knightley does a good job. Made me want to read the
Yes.
book, very much so.
I do recommend the book. It's a little, I mean, as with all older books, for me, it took me a little bit to get into the language of it because it's obviously Jane Austen time was quite a few years ago. But once I got used to the way that they spoke and the way that they spoke and the language used, I was hooked. I could not put it down. It was really well. It's like very obviously a classic for a reason.
Right, and that brings up another thing because this happens a lot with Shakespeare. Elizabethan English is very different, and there are jokes, which is this is why they have college courses on Shakespeare because there are jokes and sort of tongue-in-cheek terms and language used very often in Shakespeare where if you don't understand how people spoke, then you don't understand that it's a joke.
Yeah, it's less so in Jane Austen because she's
A little bit more contemporary
a little
compared
bit
to,
more contemporary. It's just especially because I found the biggest difference as may sorry, I found the biggest difference predominantly just being from North America and it also being from like the UK in the 1800s. So, there's less language that's super different, but just their mannerisms and of speaking is different, especially back then when you take in the way that society was hierarchical,
Mhm.
depending on where you were in society would depend on how you spoke.
Very much so.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so higher society very much was not a lot of contractions. They spoke very like clearly, concisely, and more, I guess, quote unquote proper,
Mhm.
right? So just getting sort of used to that and
Yeah,
the
because
way
there
that
are,
things are
yeah,
described.
absolutely, because there are moments in Pride and Prejudice where it's like Elizabeth is clearly making fun of someone or chastising them, but she's doing it without losing that proper manner of speaking.
Yeah.
And
So once you get used to that, then it's a lot easier to pick up on.
yeah, and I have to remind people, especially in the States, not so much Canada, although I made Justin go, that's right. You know, the middle of the Victorian era, those people were contemporary with the American Civil War. And you want to
Yes.
talk about a complete difference of culture, language, and all that. Those are contemporaries. Those were all
Yes.
happening at the exact same time. And I don't, when is Pride and Prejudice set? Does it say?
Uh,
I mean, obviously it's
like,
between
do I
1837 and
have?
1901, but
Greetings, boys and girls. My name is Isaiah Vargas. For over 3 decades, R.L. Stein's Goosebumps has reigned as one of the best-selling book series in history, spawning a monster franchise that's lasted since 1992 and spawning a massive fan base. Folks who love to talk about this influential series. And that's where we come in. Join the Goosebumps crew, Nick Shaw, Bjorn Panelik, and myself every week as we dive into the world of Goosebumps and talk about everything from the books, TV shows, movies, video games, merchandise, and so much more. Many like-minded Goosebumps fans and a growing list of special guests join us. So if you want Goosebumps, get with the program. Tune in to the Goosebumps Crew every week on YouTube and audio platforms. Become a Goosebumps Crew member today. Listen with the lights on.
Oh wow. So it's earlier, I think. It was published in 1813 originally.
Yeah, first published in 1813. So the year after our Civil War between each other.
Okay, so not quite Victorian era, but okay, so that's even wild. So let me think. What was Oh, so the United States and England were in the middle of the War of 18, or did it end by then? I think it ended in 1814, the War of 1812,
I don't think it
1815.
says specifically when it is, but yeah, it was first published in 1813. So that's
Oh, so that's even more of an interesting so I guess they're not as different then, because
so
that
I
would have
mean
been
the first line of the book, honestly, it's like iconic. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. And then you open to like Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, and just the way that the characters are characterized through their speech and through their actions. It's just so well done. It's great.
yeah, language is it's always whenever it's played with in literature, it's always fun because if you've read The Secret Garden, you know the the Yorkshire accent is an element in the book, like with the characters of Dickon and there's very much that's a dichotomy drawn between Dickon and oh, who's the Lord's son? Is it Thomas? I can't remember his name. It's been so long since I've read that book. But the Lord of the Manor's invalid son, you
Yeah.
know, their basic dichotomy is not only their speech, but also, obviously Dickon is a poorer fellow, so he's more physically and plus, I think his name is Thomas. I'm going to say it's Thomas. Plus, Thomas is disabled, at least
Yeah.
initially. So, but yeah, the way in which these characters talk tells you so much about them in both of those books as
Yeah.
examples. So, when did you start doing your show, and what was sort of the genesis of that?
I started, I feel like around November with my show. It's transformed a lot because originally I was just wanting to do like a wholesome story on Mondays to start off the week with something positive. And I was like, hey, why not put this on YouTube? And then I would read some poetry on Thursdays, and then I wanted to do a bit more with it. I was like, it would be fun if I actually took my writing knowledge and applied it to the stories and poetry I was reading. So around January, I revamped things and I started the Nancy Drew series and started doing a bit more breakdowns of the poetry I was reading. And it sort of has just expanded from there. I have so many plans and ideas of what I'd like to do, and I just need the time to do it.
Feel that?
So,
Feel that. I held on to
um,
a podcast episode for 2.5 months because I got the idea, but my release schedule was already. So I'm like, damn it. I want to put this out
yeah.
now, but yeah, and then just having time to that's the biggest thing. That's sort of the biggest thing that nobody really talks about in producing a podcast or producing a show is the time that you don't see, all the
Yeah, like
stuff you're doing behind
recording
the
is
scenes.
easy. It's all of the editing after that takes the
Yeah.
time, right? So,
This is the fun
this
part.
is the easy
This is
part.
my
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a bunch of more like editing things I'd like to get more into since I started, I've learned a lot more about video editing. So I'm sure as I go along, the format and like videos will change and get better, which,
Mhm.
makes sense as you learn how to do things.
It's always really fun to go back after you've been doing it for even a few months, but especially after a year to go back and look at your first episode.
Yeah, I can't even watch my
It's
first
so
videos
bad,
now.
isn't it? I
They're
know.
so cringe. I'm like, it's been what, 4 months, and I already feel like my first videos are so cringe. I was so awkward in front of the camera too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You get used to that too. And it's very funny. I don't know if you're like this, but I'm actually a really shy, which I'm not as anymore. When I was a kid, I was super shy. Like if you told
yeah,
me when
same.
if you told me when I was 8 or 10 that I'd be talking for hours multiple times a week, I'd be okay, whatever. Thankfully, working in sales gets rid of that pretty quick, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. But yeah, even going back to watching our first episode that we ever did, which that was about 5 years ago, but ugh, so bad. It's
Yeah.
so horrendously bad. But you got to start somewhere, which is why I always tell everybody if you want to start doing this, doing a podcast, doing a show, creating content, just do it because your first
Yeah.
one's gonna suck. It's gonna suck.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what my husband was. He's like, you just gotta start somewhere,
Hmm.
right? And then you just get better as you go along. Every YouTuber started out that way.
And then you learn how to do something, and you're like, oh shit, that would have been really valuable to know 4 months ago.
Yeah, like when I learned how to do YouTube shorts very easily in Adobe Premiere, I was like, this just shaved like a half an hour off of my
Hmm.
work process.
Yep.
I was having to do all of this roundabout in iMovie in QuickTime. I was like, this is not sustainable. And then I figured out how to do it in Premiere. I was like, you literally just highlight the section, click this one button, and it auto does it for you.
Yeah,
I
there's
was
a lot more. Well,
it
and
was
to
like
be
mind
fair,
blown.
well, I was gonna say, to be fair, when you started, that feature may not have existed because shorts content really only started, well, it started with TikTok, but in terms of like YouTube created YouTube Shorts solely to compete with TikTok. Like TikTok
Yeah,
even created the format, the 9:16 format, that whole sort of sweet spot of being 15 to 30 or 40 seconds, that
yeah.
sort of medium. And then everybody else copied it. So they completely changed the content game. And YouTube Shorts are actually it's not a secret, but that's our number one tool for growth for every podcast because the our first podcast we ever started, the Average Intelligence podcast, we were stuck at about 55 subscribers for like 2 years. Like
Oh, wow.
we just weren't getting, and then we started doing YouTube shorts and now we're at like over 3,400.
Oh, wow.
So we've been doing it for a few years now, and we had a few shorts actually go semi-viral, getting like close to half a. I think one of them did get over 500,000 views. But you just don't know. But yeah, without YouTube Shorts, it's good.
Yeah,
It totally changed the game completely.
yeah.
So being able to do it, there's a lot of tools now. In fact, one of our general sponsors, Visitor.ai, is a tool that does just that. But the cool thing about it is you can actually just take your podcast episode that you already posted on YouTube and it'll
Mhm.
churn out like 20 to 30 shorts. It's super
Oh,
cool.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
super
wow, that's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, because we used to do it I used to do it the old-fashioned way too. So it's very, and I have a background in video editing, so if you're just getting started, I can't imagine how frustrating and grueling of a process that must have been.
Yeah, a lot of YouTube tutorials.
A lot of,
Thank
yep,
God for YouTube.
right. I always say if you need to learn how to do anything, somebody's made a YouTube video on it.
Somebody's made a video about it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. YouTube is the greatest teacher ever.
Yep.
But which is interesting because when it comes to things like e-readers, and I still can't read on a screen, going back to books. I'm a grumpy old man when it comes to that. I'm still very much I want a physical book. I want to turn the page. I want to feel it, smell it, because there's nothing better than an old book smell, right?
There really
It's
isn't.
so great. But yeah, I've tried to read, and something that happens to me when I try to read on a screen, this happens in books too, is unless I'm super into it, like if I'm trying to make myself read something, I'll just kind of like start skimming and then I'll have read a paragraph and realized I don't know what it said. That's
Right.
10
Yep.
times worse. It's 10 times worse on a screen for me. So,
Okay.
yeah. And plus, I
Yeah.
mean, collecting books is fun.
It is fun. I have So many books, and I can't get rid of them. My friend is like, "Why don't you just get rid of some?" I'm like, "Art, that's like heresy. Are you kidding? You can't get rid of the
No,
books once you buy them."
no, you can't do that. And plus, just about every one of these has a story. Like I talked to you before we went on air, as a little game I want to play. Like every book has a story, and I realized something. So then I want to ask you to start. As far as you know, what's the oldest book that you have?
I wanted to check this. I wonder. Okay, let me see when this one was published. 1977. Printed in Romania.
Ooh. And is that an
Mm.
English book?
It's My Complete Works of William Shakespeare.
Ah, published in Romania. Really? That's interesting.
Interesting. When were some of these Agatha Christie books published? I feel like I don't have tons of like. Oh, this one was printed in Canada. I don't know. This one doesn't say when it was published, just when the copyright was renewed.
Hmm.
Sorry, I have a bunch of
No,
Agatha
you're good.
Christie books.
You're good.
I do have a bunch of the like, they're not in here. They're on my daughter's bookshelf because I moved them, but I do have a bunch of those like gold back books. Like these ones.
Wow, okay. Oh God, we all
So
grew up with those.
yeah, right.
And
This
they're
this
older
is
than you
gonna
think.
age me. They are older than you think. So these are probably some of the oldest books I have. This one was 1989. I have a bunch of books from 1989. Probably safe to say the 70s or 80s. I know I have one book, like kids book series that my daughter stole, that's from the 80s. But this one might be the oldest from the 70s.
I was flabbergasted because I just so happened, I looked up and I was wondering about it. It's older than even I thought it was. I have a book entitled American Leaders and Heroes. This is actually a school book, and
Oh.
it was published in 1901
Oh.
by Wilbur F. Gordy. And it actually seems really cool. Now I kind of want to read it. There's a bunch of illustrations. Like this is obviously intended for school age children, though. So it's very, very cool. But I'm also afraid to read it because, I mean, as you can see, it's kind of falling
It's
apart.
fallen apart,
It's falling
as
apart and
books
tattering.
do.
Yeah, that's the worst part. That's the only bad thing.
This one says reprinted September 1961.
Okay, and then good chance
This
that's
might be Winnie the Pooh.
is that. Oh wow, the house at Pooh Corner.
Yeah, The House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne.
By A. A. Mill, not. Was that the original author? Oh, it had to be.
Must be.
The only reason I ask is because I have this gem. I have the complete tales. Oh yes, it is A. A. Milne.
All right, I have like two versions. I have one with illustrations.
Does mine have illustration? Oh, it's so cool. Because I have
Okay,
this
yeah.
gem, the
Oh, that's
complete
awesome.
the complete Tales of Winnie the Pooh.
Okay.
It's wild. Very fun
So
books. I highly recommend if you
I
have children. They're very, very fun.
I know I have an older Alice in Wonderland book that I got from the Illustrated Classic Edition. When is this one from? No, it doesn't. This one does not have a published date on it.
I would have wagered to say that would make it pretty old.
Probably it's like a little mini illustrated version.
That's really
Uh,
cool.
I got it at I'm like not the thrift store, the antique store. Last year my daughter wanted to do a tea party for her birthday. So we did it all Alice in Wonderland themed, and she really wanted to uh read the books. And all I had was a boring ebook version with no photos. So when I was at the antique store looking at teapots and teacups for her party, I saw this illustrated version, so I picked it up.
It's really antique stores are actually a really great place to find cool old books.
Yeah, I got like an Alice in Wonderland throw pillow. I was like, I can't not buy this.
Yeah. I'm still kicking myself. I should have bought it because there's actually an antique store. It's not super close, but I really love to go there. I bought some really cool stuff from there, and I found a book that was published. When was it published? I think it was published in 1865, and it was a book about the Spanish-American War. And there was an
Okay.
entire chapter devoted to the poor marksmanship of the Spanish army.
Okay, so the copyright in these ones are actually in Roman numerals.
Okay, yeah, that's
I don't know
probably
if you can see that, but like here, it's all the Roman numerals for the year. MCMXCV2. I.
oh,
I
that's
don't
not
know what
as
year that is.
1997.
1997?
Yep.
Okay, so it's 1997.
Huh, I wonder why they did that. Interesting.
But it's got these like really lovely line drawings.
Oh, those are
That's one of
super
the
cool.
Well, that's one of the things I really love about the kind of like older, like Nancy Drew and Hardy Boy books. You get the like really cool line drawings in them
That's actually really cool.
throughout.
Yeah, very, very cool. Um, so
So,
so now I have to ask though, what would you say is your favorite book that you own? Not necessarily your favorite story, but your favorite physical book.
um,
Like what's your pride and joy?
it is not an old book. The book that I really love, which was actually a gift, is this. It's called The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by John Koenig. Um, if you read the reviews, very, very polarizing. I
Really?
started following him on Tumblr way back in like 2013, 2014, back when Tumblr was a thing. And he would post random words that he made up and their definitions. And after so many years of doing that, he finally published an actual dictionary of a bunch of the words. And it did become a New York Times bestseller by Simon and Schuster. And you just have things like poggled, which is an adjective, and it's shocked upon looking twice at something you see every day and catching an obvious detail you'd never noticed before. So,
That actually
um,
happens to me a lot more often than you'd think.
and some of it is like based off of other words and just sort of rejiggered. And when I was reading the reviews for it, a lot of people were like, these are just taking words and then like making them your own and then coming up with a definition. And I was like, how do you think languages are created, bro?
Right. Yeah,
So
that's literally.
as as someone who has actually created their own language, that's literally how you create a
Wait,
language.
hang on. We're gonna have to back up. Hang on. You created your own language for your series or for something
For
else?
my series, yeah, so my elementals are from a
So
planet
cool.
called Adrian, and they speak Xamarin.
Oh, that is so cool.
And so I created the language Xamarin. I have a whole my friend who is also a language nerd helped me write a whole grammar outline, and I have a whole dictionary of words and idioms and turns of phrase and things like that for it.
So, because this happens to be one of my favorite books, The Languages of Men. I actually learned at one point. I wouldn't say I was fluent, but I could write in it. I could write the entire Elvish alphabet, and I used to actually write my notes in school in code.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
It was.
my friend used to write in like the Tolkien alphabet too,
Hmm.
in high school, and then we would just always be learning languages. We'd be writing in codes. We for a while both decided to learn Esperanto, so we would write all of our notes to each other and pass them back in Esperanto. Like we were
So
super, super into
awesome.
languages.
That's so awesome. And just to give you an idea of how often I did this, this is the version I bought because this is the version that I
Oh,
had in high school.
oh
As you can
wow.
see, it's and it was new when I had it in high
It's
school,
very
so
well loved.
very well loved. Um,
Grammar sketch, that's what it's called. I have a
yeah,
grammar sketch.
very
Sorry,
much.
that was the
Whew.
delayed processing there.
No, you're good. You're good. Which actually, I forgot about this. This was my sister's book originally, but she never read it, and you can't see it, but she had her name written up here,
Oh,
and
up
if you
there.
could see it, I used whiteout to get rid of that because I said this is mine now.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. As a fellow language nerd, now I really want to read your book. Because I don't.
Oh.
Well,
Well,
people
yeah. So here's
underestimate.
the thing is I would have because book one is from two both main characters. So Karina, who is my female protagonist, and Dawson, who is my male protagonist. And then, so when my character, who is human and from Earth, obviously speaks English, she's from North America, is overhearing conversations from these other characters who are very obviously alien and would not be speaking in English. I was like, this doesn't make sense that they're speaking English right now. It's not their first native language. They would be
Right.
speaking Xamarin to each other. So I was like, to rectify this, I should obviously create a whole language. So,
Yeah, I mean, you
um,
chuckle, but language is an oft neglected. Not so much anymore. They've gotten better, especially with movies like Avatar, which were not the first to do it. I would.
yeah,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Star Trek might have been the first major property to actually create a language for a fictional race of people. I
that
might
you
be
can
wrong on that.
actually learn and
Yes.
speak in.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly. Because before then, I know that some authors may have made up a word or two here or there, but I mean, and I'm sure somebody did it before. Well, no,
yeah.
actually, I take that back. Well, maybe Dune. Maybe Dune. I don't know if
Maybe
they did.
Dune.
Maybe Dune. I don't know if they actually invented, because I believe this is a fun segue, but I've not read Dune yet. I really want to though, because
It's on my shelf. It's been on my shelf forever. Every time I look at it, I see how thick it is, and I just get so intimidated.
now is that just the first one, or is that like the first two? Because I know they've done a
I
bunch of editions where they
really should.
combine them.
I've wrecked the homeostasis of the bookshelf. Are these stamps? What is this?
Oh, did we discover
The
something?
Lung Association? These seals carry no postal value. Oh, they're just Christmas letter seals, I guess.
Oh, well, that's
2014.
cool.
Okay. I don't know, man.
Huh.
I don't know where it's from. With your help, we can support the 6 million Canadians with lung disease. I don't know where this came from.
Well, it's
It
definitely
was
not from
in this book.
Arrakis.
Okay, so book one, book two, book three, appendix 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay, I
terminology
figured.
of the Imperium, cartographic notes, map, and then an afterword by Brian Herbert.
That's really
So
cool.
it's everything. So it's just the entire thing.
Yeah. The first three books is apparently there were some that were published posthumously, and I believe some by his son. But yeah, those are the three. Those are the three main ones. But fun fact about Dune, I was aware of Dune. I had never read it. I didn't know anything about it. I had never seen the movies, and then the new movies came out. The Denis Villeneuve, well, the first one came out, and I actually got asked to go watch it, believe it or not, for a date. And I was like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. But I had heard that Dune was really boring. So I'm like, well, I like long, boring shit. So I'll probably enjoy it. She fell asleep in the theater, and I was watching it just like, oh my God, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So now I'm very much into the movies. I really want to read the book, but oh, time. I need
Yeah.
time.
Okay, they do have what looks like an entire dictionary of words back here.
Oh, that's really cool. Is it the Fremen language or?
It says terminology of the Imperium,
Huh.
but it's
Because they
like
imply,
ABBA.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
ABBA.
imply.
Loose robe worn by Fremen women, usually black. Adab, the demanding memory that comes upon you of itself.
Huh.
Al-Lat, mankind's original sun, by usage, any planet's primary. But yeah. Botany Jib, see Chakobsa. I have stuff like that in my dictionary too. I'm like, this is a synonym. See this other word.
So cool. I love it.
The veil between her world and the other realm has faded, unleashing magic into the lives of ordinary citizens. Awakening from a 4-year coma, Tori James discovers a world transformed. For some, like Tori, the unveiling ignites hidden abilities. With her expertise in classical languages, she's drawn into a world of thieves and magic. Join Tori on her magical journey in Book 1 of the Unveiled book series, Revival. Unveil your destiny.
That's really cool. Ironically, this ties into language, but what I consider my coolest book is my paperback version of Faust, but
Oh,
it has both the English and original German translations. So
oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if you can make it out. One side's English and one side's German.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Yeah.
cool. I love this thing so much. Very cool. Probably a close tie for second, or it might actually be my first, but this goes back to my childhood. And I'm so mad because this book is much rarer than I thought it would be. My deluxe illustrated edition of The Hobbit
Oh, fancy.
with in the art style of the movie, but these are not animation cells. These are paintings done.
Okay.
Although I think they do have some animation cells in here, but a lot of it is just paintings in the same art style because
Oh,
if
that's
you've seen the
awesome.
animated Hobbit movie, you know some of these shots are not in it. But
Yeah.
it came with a dust jacket that this one didn't have it, and I'm really mad. But fortunately for me, my mother has the original one that I grew up with, so
Okay.
it will be mine. But I wanted this. I don't have kids yet, but I knew if I ever had kids, I would want this, so I went ahead and bought it when I found it in a half price books.
That's awesome. I don't know. I feel like most of the books, like the super nostalgia books for me, are all on my daughter's bookshelf now because I took all of the kids' books and put them on her bookshelf.
Yeah, that makes
So I have
sense.
some on there from my childhood that are pretty meaningful, I suppose.
It's very cool. Now I've got one more that I have to ask you. What's your weirdest book that you have?
My weirdest book? Um, oh, I should have. I'm like, I guess that isn't really. I guess that's an illustrated book. It's not really an actual novel. The weirdest book I own. Gosh, I don't even. I feel like this isn't my book, so I probably can't take credit for it.
Ah, you can take credit for it. It's on your bookshelf. Possession is nine
I
tenths of the
don't.
law.
I don't even know what it's about. It's called Neuromancer by William Gibson. What is this? A French Bible with the Apocrypha?
That's really cool.
December 1988. La traduction œcuménique de la Bible.
I think that's the King James version.
There you go. That's more than what I know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I studied at one point, believe it or not, I was fluent in French. I studied it for 2 years in high school, but I have forgotten all of it. Every
Oh
once in a
yeah,
while, yeah, it comes back
here
to
you
me,
go.
but
Les autres écrits. Oh, this is Psalms.
les
I'm
autres
pretty sure
écrits, the
Les
other
autres
writings.
écrits, the other writing,
Yeah.
which is Psalms, and Job is in here.
Les autres écrits. I wonder what that was. Is that maybe that's hmm.
Proverbs, Esther, First and Second Chronicles, Esther, the Greek version. Oh, les livres deutérocanoniques. Oh, is this the French, the way that they say French version of Apocrypha? The Greek version of Esther? Didn't know there was a Greek version of Esther.
That would make sense. It depends on when it was published, because if they had an earlier writing, a
The
lot
book,
of the
maybe.
Old Testament, a lot of the Old Testament was translated from the Greek version.
Oh yeah.
So prior to
This
this,
is
so that has to be probably published after 1954, if I had to guess, if they have two
yeah, it's
versions.
1980 something, 1980 something. Judith, Tobit, Maccabees.
Hmm.
There's some notes in here, I think, from my friend. Oh yeah. Because I think she really liked the Maccabees. She's got like quotes in here. Anyways, that's probably one of them.
That's super cool. That's really cool.
Um,
It's funny how a lot of our choices have to do with foreign languages, because my strangest is The Hobbit translated into Latin
okay, I do
for
have
some
this one
reason.
called Plants That Kill. It was a gift, so I haven't read it yet. It's newer.
That's really cool.
A Natural History of the World's Most Poisonous Plants. My
I
husband
love
was
books like
like,
that. Absolutely.
why are
That's
you?
such a
I
that's
was
such
like,
a
it
cool
is a
book.
gift. They bought it and but yeah, I love like these sort of like naturey books. They're fun.
I actually walked by this in it was a Barnes and Noble actually, and I was like, "What?" Because it's weird. I don't speak Latin, but I recognized it as Latin, habitus.
Yeah,
But I was
yeah,
like, "What is this fresh hell?" And it's a new book, and plus it was in a Barnes and Noble, so it has to be new.
right.
And I was like, I have no use for this at all, but it's so cool and weird. I can't not buy it. And
Yeah, I for
plus,
sure.
it incentivizes me to learn how to speak Latin so I can read a book that I've already read. But
I mean I do have oh, this is probably from the Tale of Tom Kitten. Now I'm getting distracted.
that's interesting.
1980.
Apparently, the Latin word for chapter is caput.
Oh, oh, I
Oh,
didn't
that
know
makes
that.
sense though, because in Spanish, it's chapter is capítulo.
That does make sense.
That does make sense.
I do have a Korean version of The Adventures of Edward Tulane
So
randomly.
random and awesome. I love it.
I can read it, but I can't tell you what it says.
Wait, so you can read Korean?
So I can read it, but I don't know what it means.
Sure. Yeah. No. That Believe it or not, that
So
makes
like
sense.
I know this says like Edward Tulane Shinkihan Yoheng. So this is like Edward Tulane's. I don't know what Shinkihan means, but Yoheng means like vacation or like trip. So his something trip, or adventure. Like,
This is
yeah.
so awesome. I love it. So for those of you who do frequent half price books, all of them do have a foreign language section. So if you're nerding out with us right now, you can go pick up some interesting novelties there. And also, I want to hear from you guys in the comments, your oldest book, your favorite book, your weirdest book, and how much you want for it. I'm kidding. This is what I love about books, because all these things have a story. They're all just so randomly weird and delightful.
Um, yeah, like this is the other Korean book I have, and it's kind of just uh everyday things that you would do as a couple, but in like the cutest way. So like this one, if you can see, they're just like laying down here on the ground, and it says, "Sometimes I lay down without doing anything. I just want to rest."
But in Korean.
But in Korean. And like this one, which is them eating ice cream.
So awesome.
And it's just like very like just these like one-liners. And it's just in the street, just a bite. So it's this very like and it's by a visual artist.
Oh, okay.
So I think they have more than one book, but this is the first one. And it was not the easiest to find. But I was determined. So
Makes sense. Like, and I know I'm not the only one because I think you would agree with this, is I'm actually at some point in my life, I'm gonna maybe with a dictionary, but I'm gonna get through this. And the funny thing is, my understanding of Latin will increase 100-fold from
yeah.
just powering through. And then you see connections because, like I said, I do speak Spanish. So, just as I pointed out with the word chapter, it's like, oh, no, that makes sense. And with language is interesting because when you start to see the patterns in it, then it just
Yeah.
starts to, then you just start to absorb it all. And it's super fun. Because I'm to the point
Yeah.
now, my fiance, her first language is Spanish. So
Okay.
I've gotten to the point now where I will, if I don't know how to say a word, I'll make an educated guess based upon how the language works. And I'd say 75% of the time I'm right, if not like close enough to where she understands what I'm trying to say and then immediately corrects me, but it's
Yeah.
pretty close. And then sometimes I fail miserably, but you know, it's a different language.
Yes. The
Ah,
effort is there. That's what
oh, for
counts.
sure. But I've always been a language nerd. I've always liked learning new languages and language. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact. I don't care who you are. Language is a gateway to culture,
Yes. I
because
agree.
the example that so many people point out is that I believe it's the Inuit language, but it's one of the tribes, Native American tribes of Alaska. They have like what, 16 or some odd words for snow, different
Yes.
kinds, different
Yeah.
textures, different times. And then whereas in English we just have snow.
No.
Just
Yeah, there's words like that in like even Japanese. There's I think four different words for love,
that
depending
makes
on what
sense.
kind of love you're describing.
Yeah, there's two in Spanish.
Yeah, so it's like there's friendship love, there's like big like, there's the actual like word for love that is essentially never used because the weight of the word is so
Hmm.
enormous that people feel like they can't use it.
Fair enough.
So I really only hear it in like songs, like song lyrics will use it, but that's pretty much the only time.
That's IE, correct?
Yeah, if you say aishiteru, then it means like I love you,
But
but
isn't
you
that
would
isn't
never
yeah,
say it to,
isn't that more like I love you though? Or is
no,
that
it's like if you were to say like aishiteru to someone, it would be the English equivalent of telling your spouse or
ah
like I love you. They hold that phrase with such like heaviness and like weight, like the
huh.
meaning behind it, that to say it out loud to someone is just like too much.
Now I'm wondering because I don't know if you've heard of it.
So
There was a manga that was published, I forget the year, but
aishiteru yo baby.
that's the name of the manga.
I've read it.
Okay, so you know what it's about then. So
Isn't
that title seemingly makes no sense,
um
except they use
well
baby
that's
in the literal sense.
yeah, so like that's what I mean though, like they will use it sort of in those instances,
Ah,
but in your everyday life, I would never go to my husband and say like aishiteru. You can say like daisuki, which is the word big and the word like, so big like. Like if you were confessing to someone, you could say like ski, which is like, or daisuki, which is like I really like you.
mm-hmm.
I like you. But yeah, you would never go up to someone and say like "I steru" because
Oh,
it's
sure. I would imagine that being very
um
off-putting, even in a general
yeah.
sense. But
Whereas in English, you really only have like "I like you" or "I love you." There's
hmm
no. So I
yeah,
used to know
it's
all of the different ways to say it. There's like koi is also depending because for Japanese, depending on the kanji and if it's with hiragana or not, it will have two different. So just the kanji for love in itself is I. But if you pair it with other stuff, it turns into koi. So
hmm.
yeah, it's just so you'll have there is a manga that uses it. It's too long, I don't remember it. But yeah, you'll see a lot of manga where it'll say like koi, so it's like love,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure
just
that
the
would explain a
different
few things.
version.
Yeah, because
But yeah,
Spanish has a similar element to those who don't know. So you have te amo and te quiero, which te quiero
okay.
is literally saying I want you, but in the context that it's used in this, like it means I love you, but you'll often see
Yeah.
people use it in a new relationship or to like family
Okay.
members say it. Family members
Yeah.
say it to each other all the time. Te amo is it's not specifically reserved for a romantic partner, but it's usually for like a very emotional moment with family or with
Mm.
your spouse or romantic partner that you're in a relationship with. And then Spanish also has the quirk of having two verbs for to be, which is very confusing for people learning English and people learning Spanish.
Yeah.
You have ser, which the best way I can describe it, you have ser and estar. And the best way I can describe the difference is estar is like I'm being this right now. Ser is like I am like a being in essence. Because, like, for example, if you want to say there's a phrase in Spanish, being of light, that would be ser de luz, being of light. But that's being as a
Okay.
state of like intrinsic being. So, for example, if I wanted to say conjugated, of course, if I wanted to say like I'm a man, I would say soy un hombre. I wouldn't say
Right.
estoy un hombre because I'm a man my entire life.
Right.
That's not gonna change. But if I want to say I'm here, I would say estoy aquí
Okay.
because soy aquí would be like
Right.
it's like I understand what you're saying, but you're saying it in really, really strange way.
Weird. Yeah.
Like are
Okay.
you okay? Are you having a stroke? Like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know? Which obviously, if you're not a native Spanish speaker, you'll often just be corrected.
Very easy to confuse the two.
It
I
is
would imagine
especially
if
yeah.
you're learning.
That's why somebody told me once that the best way to describe it is, if you're gonna be this tomorrow, use ser. If you're
Yeah.
just this today, emotional states too. Like if you want to say I'm happy, you would say estoy feliz. You wouldn't say soy feliz because you might not be happy tomorrow, but
Right.
you are right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
And then there's the added element of there's a lot of things like to say you're afraid or your age even in Spanish you don't say because that's not a state of being, that's a thing that you have. So if you want to say I'm afraid in Spanish, you would say tengo miedo, which means I have fear, as
Right.
opposed to you wouldn't say estoy miedo because
Right.
they'd be like what do you
You're
mean
not
you're
literally afraid.
yeah, they're like what do you mean you're fear?
Yeah.
You know,
Your
it would
pitch from the Rise of the Guardians, your literal fear.
there you go. There you go. But like most languages, though, Japanese being another example of this, you can have a lot of fun with it when you understand how it works, and you can, or like my favorite thing to do is make Spanish puns using English logic.
Okay.
So my favorite was I, I bought a sombrero for my dog, and
That's amazing.
I sent the picture and called it a sombrero,
Oh,
which
yes.
it's funny. English speakers that speak Spanish get the joke immediately. I usually have to
Yeah.
explain it to like native Spanish speakers. They're like, I don't understand. I'm like, no,
Right.
because it's like in English we do that all the time. We combine words usually for comedic effect. In Spanish
Yeah.
they don't do it
They
as
don't really
much.
do that. Yeah.
And then yeah, then there's like turns of phrase in Spanish that makes absolutely no sense when you translate them. None whatsoever. It's like, what do you mean a frog hop? That doesn't make any sense. Stop.
Yeah,
but they're like,
I feel like my friends, we used to do that in high school with Japanese because they're at the time we didn't know the nuances, but go die in Japanese means five machines.
right, right.
So you would have someone that you absolutely despised in your vicinity, and you'd just be like, go die. And they'd be like, excuse me. And you'd be like, five cars. There's five cars right there.
I love that.
Uh,
I actually love that.
yeah.
That's really, really funny.
So,
And then
and
with
then later as an
Japanese, yeah.
adult, like I actually learned that die doesn't specifically mean car, it means machine. So I'm like, well, we were almost there, but we'd be like five cars, go die.
It's really funny. I actually love that.
So
And then in Japanese you have the added element of the kanji for names, which
yes.
if you're an
Yeah.
English manga reader and you haven't come across this yet, you probably have, you just didn't realize it, is a lot of times when people are saying their names in a manga or an anime, they'll say their name and then they'll tell you how they write it, but it sounds weird. Like my favorite example, there's a manga in Fruits Basket where oh, what's the character's name? I can't remember, but
Which
he intro
one?
um
No, no, like just which, like, are they one of the animals?
no. It's somebody that goes to school. He's in student council with Yuki, but he introduces himself.
Oh,
He gives his
okay.
name, and then he says it's spelled like the true pot flies
Right.
because he's explaining the kanji that you would use to spell his name because different
Yes.
kanji can have different sounds, as you alluded to earlier
Different
with
sounds
I.
and different meanings.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Well, so for Sailor Moon's fans out there, how do I?
Like,
Oh, this is
yeah,
a yeah, this is a better example. So if you're a fan of Death Note, if you've seen it, when Misa discovers Light's name, she says when she first sees him, she says his name's Moon Yagami because
yeah.
his first name is using the character for Moon,
Hmm.
but he pronounces it Light Yagami
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Raito in
Yeah.
Japanese. But yeah,
Because yeah, it's like in Japanese, hana can mean nose or hana can mean flower. It
hmm
depends which kanji it is, right? So when you're describing your name, you can say like hana, you'd be like the kanji like flower,
yeah,
not the
exactly.
kanji like nose.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so
yeah.
there is an element to introductions in Japanese without something like a business card or your name written down, where you have to tell people. It's kind of like if you have a weirdly spelled name in the States or Canada, and you have to explain to
Yeah.
people, but it's kind of not the same.
It's Catherine with a K and a Y.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly. Obviously, you're Sailor Moon fans. No, what's her name? Tsukino Usagi? Yeah, I think it's
Tsukino
Tsukino.
Isagi, yeah.
Yeah. Sailor
Yeah,
Moon fan?
Tsuki. Yeah, so Tsuki means moon, no is of, and Usagi is rabbit. So her name
hmm
literally means rabbit of the moon.
Which another element to that for those of you who don't know, like if you grew up in North America, you probably heard the phrase man on the moon because there's allegedly, I've never seen it, but apparently when some people look at the moon, they see a face.
Yes,
Well,
I've never seen it,
yeah, I've never
but
seen it either. Culturally in Japan, there's a rabbit on the moon.
there's a rabbit on the moon, yes.
Yeah. So that's why that name makes way more sense if you know how Japanese works and it's a really cute detail that instantly, if you're in the know, it instantly tells you something about the character, even though you may not
Yeah.
understand what that thing is yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of their names have meanings. Like Ami is specifically spelled AMI for the
hmm
French word friend. So
Ah,
Mizuno Ami is friend of water.
yeah, and I was gonna say because Mizu,
So
and then what's Sailor Mars's name? Isn't her name Ray?
Hino Ray,
You
yeah.
know, well, he is
He
fire.
is fire, yeah.
Yeah, we could do a deep dive on this for the fans of Naruto out there. Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke is a legendary ninja in Japanese culture, and then Uchiha is the same characters as Uchiwa, which is a little fan that is used to fan flames on a
And the
fire.
flames.
And
Okay.
Sasuke's base element is fire. And in fact,
Okay.
the first ninjutsu you see him use is a giant fireball. So Japanese kids reading this story instantly get the name, which I poke fun at Avatar for having unobtainium as the MacGuffin rock, right?
Yeah.
Which I wonder if there are like Japanese manga readers that find something like that just as silly as like a really obvious reference.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Don't know.
I
But
wonder.
I like to think there's some kid being like, "Oh, Uchiha Sasuke, that's on the nose a bit, don't you think?"
Yeah. Well,
Maybe,
yeah,
maybe
I
not.
mean, same, it's the same with like Usagi and stuff, right? A little on the nose.
Yeah. I feel like though, because their language and writing structure makes those kinds of references a little bit more veiled,
Hmm.
as opposed to English where it's like, "Oh, this MacGuffin rock is unobtainium. Get it? It's unobtainable." Except the whole point of us being on this planet is to obtain it. But I just consider that lazy
Details.
writing.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, I actually
Um,
proposed promethium, but
that's
you
a
know,
pretty good one.
they didn't consult me, so
Yeah.
I'm not getting the check from James Cam.
No, no.
I just think it would have been better. So moving forward, as we
Yes.
kind of sort of wrap this up, I would apologize for the nerd segues, but I have a
It's
feeling you
okay.
enjoyed them too. So,
Yeah, I'm a big
um,
nerd at heart, so
yeah, that's what I said. We could go all day if we want to. So I will, I will do you the kindness of not doing that. But so as far as the future goes, and first, I don't think I've said this, at least not on here. I've said it officially, but obviously, welcome to the Arete Media Podcast Pantheon. We're very happy to have
thank
you as part
you.
of our
It's
little family.
very exciting to join. Very
Well,
happy to be here.
we were very happy to have you because it was funny when Justin put us in contact. Justin from Spur of the Moment podcast, shout out.
Yeah.
Or actually, I think it was Jordan. He gave Jordan the credit. Anyway, one of the hosts of the Spur of the Moment podcast put us in touch, and then I took a look at your show, and I was like, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. We need this show. We need this show very badly because I see so much potential in what you're doing. It's a great concept, and you'll never run out of material because for you to do that, you would have to
There's so
run
many
out of
books.
books. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so you won't even run out of books in your own house, much less books out there.
No,
And
I doubt it.
yeah, and boy, wouldn't that be a great problem to have? It's like, oh no, I have to go buy another book for the
Oh
show.
no. Yeah, right.
Twist my arm. But so what are you hoping to accomplish with it in the future? Like where do you want this to get to?
I would love to do more writing specific videos, get more like nuanced into things like character creation, plot development and planning, things like that. I do love doing the deep dives, like reading other authors and less criticizing and more just actually talking about the technical aspects of the writing and what I think personally the writer is doing. Eventually, once I get enough followers, it would be nice to have actual discussions with people and um, get other outside perspectives and thoughts on what they think the author is trying to say and like what other people notice in the writing. And I would like to vamp up the like production, have more actual fun stuff in my videos instead of me just talking to the camera. So I have recently tossed around because I know there was a 1970s Nancy Drew series.
Hmm.
If I can find any clips or episodes, it would be fun to look at some of those stories from the show and
Have you looked it up on
add
the
those
Internet
in.
Archive yet?
I haven't. I
It
have
may or may
not.
not
I
be there.
remember watching it as a kid. Like I know that it was existed. I'm pretty sure I've seen some episodes as a kid, but that's I haven't actually had time recently.
Yeah,
So
it might be on there. At least some episodes might be on there.
I should look.
Yeah. Well, and for those who may be thinking of this, I don't condone piracy, but sometimes you just can't find stuff anywhere else.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know if it would be streaming anywhere because it
Probably
is such
not.
an it's an such an older, obscure show. Although like shout out to my mom's first crush, that one Hardy Boy. I'm blanking on his name. Shane Cassidy, something like that. I can't remember if it's Shane or Sean Cassidy.
Mr. Cassidy.
Mr. Cassidy.
Well, I'm very
So,
confident that you'll be able to do just that. And honestly, when you have enough people that are following the show episode by episode, You could do some really killer live streams that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would love to incorporate some live streams. That would be so much fun.
It would be, yeah, and have, like you said, conversations as some of my favorite shows to do are live streams because of the audience interaction. Not trying to, well, no, I am going to self promote. On the Average Intelligence podcast, we recently did our review of Cobra Kai season 6, and since it's
Okay.
the last one, the series as a whole, I'm not even kidding you. We planted the seed earlier in the episode as kind of a joke, is we were like, we need to talk to Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, and some people who were listening entered the chat as Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso, and they argued for like 45 minutes, and it was popcorn worthy theater. It was
Amazing.
fantastic, to the point where we
Amazing.
we eventually put the chat up on the screen so people could see it instead of us just reading
Yeah.
it. It was brilliant, and I'm so proud of that because we had nothing to do with that. That happened organically. We
Yeah.
didn't tell people like, yeah, come in about 40 minutes, and it's like this. I'll be honest, I didn't even know you could do that. Unless they created a YouTube account. I
Yeah, I
did.
think you have. Yeah, I don't know because my name always shows up as my YouTube account name.
Yeah, same
So
here.
unless they had a YouTube account and they went and specifically changed their name temporarily just to do that.
I would think they had to do that. Yeah, that has to
Yeah.
be it. Yeah, but two people took the time to do just that,
Yeah.
just to participate in our chat. So you guys are awesome, whoever you are. Thank you very much for that. Um, but yeah, and then check out Allie's shows because especially when you get into Dune, that'll be a fun one if you plan to do it on the show. Not
Yeah, anything not out of copyright, I can like personally read and then go over the chapters like in
yeah.
detail describing things. So, yeah, I have again so many ideas of things I would love to do. I have so many books on my bookshelf that I even have yet to read.
Hmm.
So it would be cool to at some point go through like books that I haven't even read and talk about them on the channel or go back and reread books from, that I've read like 10 years ago that I really loved. And do I still love it? I don't know.
You make me wanna.
Hello. Welcome to Wholesome Monday.
Poetry Thursday.
Wholesome Monday.
Poetry Thursday.
Welcome to literature. Sorry, wow. Say that 3 times 5. 3 times 5. 3 times 5. Fuck. My YouTube channel to accompany my Patreon. That sounds like I made my Patreon and then made my YouTube channel. Nix that. Okay, I'm gonna start over. Welcome to Literature and Lingerie, where we will mostly on YouTube be getting up to a lot of literature. Hit that subscribe button, and I think they say you should hit the bell, right? So that you're notified. No. I probably should have vetted that. I mean, it was 1888, so what do I expect? Edgar, what the hell? This strap.
And then finally, kind of in closing, just to help people get to know you a little bit more, is you have a Patreon, and so what's I guess sort of like what's the difference between your YouTube show and what you do on Patreon and that kind of stuff?
So Patreon, I read spicier stories.
Mm.
I read more erotica and smut stories. And at some point, I will set up a shop that has the entire lingerie side of my channel.
Oh, okay. So is the lingerie side of your, because it is literature and
So,
lingerie, is that like
because
your
I do,
products?
yeah, I do boudoir photography.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. I was
So,
wondering about that.
yes. Yeah, I know people are like literature and lingerie, but you only do literature. It's like, yes, I'm in the process. I just got access to shop, I think a month ago, or
Hmm.
might have even been less than a month ago. So I'm in the process of setting all of that up with my boudoir photography and stuff like that. So, and I have a Discord channel, so anyone who joins, I think at $5 a month gets access to the Discord. so we can
Okay, we'll
have
have
our
to.
own little literature community.
This Discord's great. We actually have an Arete Media Discord server. It's a private one for all the podcast hosts that are on it. So
Okay.
I'll send you an invite. I'll be honest, not a ton happens on there, but it
Okay.
exists to be a central place where if we have like a network wide announcement, we can send it to one place, and it's kind of, although
Makes
some
sense.
of our hosts have not joined up yet, but you don't have to. But I find Discord to be a wonderful tool. Um,
It's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty solid. Well, Allie, thank you for joining us today. Anything else you want to talk about, mention? Because like I said, I can go all day.
Not that I
Well,
can think of off the top of my
I
head.
know I
It
put
was,
you on the spot.
I mean, thank you so much for having me though. This was
It
so
was
much
my
fun.
pleasure. It was my pleasure. But
Um, I'm
everybody out there,
always down. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm always down to talk about books and stories and writing like anytime. So
all you viewers out there, you probably clicked on this because you already read, but if you don't, read more. Read
read
books.
more.
It's fun.
And I'm just gonna say it, whether it's controversial or not, audiobooks still count as books. They still count as reading a book, in my
Okay,
opinion.
I'm glad you said that because this is a thought that I had for a long time and I've come to this conclusion. So because I'm a grumpy old man at heart, I did kind of resist counting audiobooks as books per se until so I'm constantly reading books. I'm always working on one at a time because if I'm too ADD with reading. If I don't focus on one book, I'll never finish one of them.
Yeah.
So I was reading Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion, and I'm unapologetically saying it's one of the worst books I've ever written. I'm not written, one of the worst books I've ever read. That man is very smart. You would think he would write better. It's so boring and dull. And spoiler alert, read the first chapter. That's the whole book because he just says the
Okay.
exact same thing 10 different ways. That
Cool.
being said,
Noted.
it was real dull. So I found the audiobook that he narrated. It's the official audiobook, and I listened to it.
Okay.
Much better, much more digestible. And then I can say, yeah, I read the book, still think it's a piece of shit, but you know, you can read it. It's your thing. So
Yeah.
I've changed my tune on audiobooks, but then I started thinking because you hear about these people online that always saying things like, "Well, I don't even know, like I read a book a day." And I'm like, no you don't. Unless you count audiobooks as reading.
Yeah. So I, depending on the kind of book, I don't know if I still could now. But I used to read a book a day. I would
Sure,
read
there
through a series in
yeah, like if you're talking like a young adult book series, that's very
they're
possible.
so digestible.
Yeah,
But
no,
like the
these are
actual like adult books,
yeah,
impossible for me to get through in a day. There's
that's yeah.
just too much content in them to
Yeah,
consume in a single.
that's what these people are. These are guys that are saying like I read a book a day, I finance book a day. I'm like you do not read a finance book in a day. You
You
absolutely
listen
do
to a
not.
finance book
You
a
listen
day.
to a finance that I believe, or it's either that or you're just lying. Both of depending on who you're talking about, both are likely. I believe somebody maybe like I couldn't do this because I'm actually kind of a slow reader. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I have to make sure that I'm digesting everything that I read. I believe people that can read a book a week, but obviously you're not working full time if you do that. If you're reading like really serious novels or nonfiction books per
Yeah,
week.
like Patrick Rothfuss took me, I like got it from the library, The Name of the Wind, and I had to renew it, I think once or
Yeah,
twice. I might have had to renew it twice to get through the whole thing
sure. Yeah.
because it was like a giant, like massive book. And just the long paragraphs of description just take forever to go through,
Yeah,
like to
no,
read through.
definitely. So,
So,
yes, but if you count audiobooks, I can certainly I can see a week because I can certainly
so
because I got through I was listening to The God Delusion on my way to and from work, and I got through that in about because I think it was 8 hours long, the audiobook was. So I got through that. That's the other thing. Audiobook's 8 hours.
yeah.
So did you do nothing the rest of the day? Because I could think of about 1,000 more productive things to do than listen to The God Delusion in one go in a day. But I can say I read it.
Yeah.
It's still on my bookshelf too, because I don't get rid of books. Not anymore. I learned my lesson with Animorphs. I
Yeah.
don't get rid of books anymore. Plus, I just like the idea of being able to say that I have my personal library. It makes me feel
Well,
sophisticated.
yeah. My goal, like as a child, like for when I was an adult, to have books on my bookshelf that I had never read so that I could walk to my bookshelf and pick up a new book to read. Yeah, I spent my entire 20s buying books at such a fast pace that I couldn't keep up reading them because I was buying them with the express purpose to have a library of books that I had never read.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah, I feel that. I have, I'd say probably not half, but close to half I haven't read yet.
yeah. And
I would
then
say.
some series I bought and then I just didn't like them. So I have the series and I got through book 1 and I was like, I don't know.
I don't know if I'm gonna.
I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
gonna finish the rest of the series. Like I have like the Ink Heart, Ink Death, and Ink Spell, and I know those were translated, so I don't know if it's just the translation that makes it
it
super
might be.
clunky, but they're so hard to read. They was
Yeah,
so hard to read.
that's always a shame too when you find a book that you want to like it, but it's usually just the prose. It's usually just how it's written, where you're just like,
Yeah.
I just can't get through this book. It's so, ugh.
It's just yeah, it's just so it was just very like clunky and it just was like hard to get through. And some of the characters, I was like, I don't understand. I don't know if this is the point or like the purpose. This just seems weird. Is this like a translation issue?
Maybe
So
even a
yeah,
cultural thing. Yeah, it's just
maybe. Yeah, I figured once my daughter was old enough, I would probably try and reread the first book with her. And if she was into it, I was like, maybe that'll get me through the rest of the books. So, because sometimes also the first book in a series, because it's the first one that the author wrote, is, you know, not to give J.K. Rowling any screen time, but the first Harry Potter book is so freaking boring. I'm sorry.
really. I kind of,
It's
I
so
like,
boring.
I see what
Nothing
you're saying.
happens until the very sliver end. Like you spend so much time on other stuff. But
Yeah.
when you get into other books, because the plot is moving along much faster, there's so much more going on. It's a lot more exciting and easier to get into.
To me, the fourth book is just the biggest hunk of garbage out of all that because
If
it's just so, it's so,
there's a
don't like
lot.
it. It kind of has
Yeah,
the opposite
there's a lot
problem.
of there's a lot of like parts that are like extended that don't necessarily need to be as extended.
That's it.
They
Yeah.
could
And
have
then there's
been
there's
pared
just so many
back
really strange and weird elements that kind of feel like they don't need to be there.
either. Yeah.
It's just kind of, and that's a really good example of what I was talking about though. Like the concept of the Triwizard Tournament is really cool, but this seems like a very convoluted plot. Like they could go wrong at so many turns just to get Harry at a certain place at a certain time. When
Yeah.
wouldn't
If
it
you
just
think too much into it, it's completely falls apart.
well, because spoiler alert for the Goblet of Fire. If you already have, oh, what's his name? The guy who's impersonating Mad Eye Moody.
Oh,
You already have your sleeper agent there. All he
yeah.
needs to do is grab Harry at one point, which he establishes a relationship with Harry, the imposter Mad Eye, to where it would be nothing to have him come to your classroom and then just use a port key to take him to the graveyard. The whole Triwizard Tournament, faking the getting past the security around the cup. Like it's so convoluted and messy. And what's your plan if Harry dies?
Yeah.
Like a literal dragon? Maybe he doesn't figure out. Like the only reason he figures out the second task with the mer people is because Cedric Diggory is an idiot and
Okay.
has a heart of gold for some reason, which ends up
Yeah.
getting him killed. Is like if or you could just kidnap him. Like that seems like a
Yeah.
lot easier thing to do, you know,
Yeah.
and you need him alive because you need his blood. Again, spoiler alert for the Goblet of Fire, but if you haven't read it
But
yet, you're not going to. So,
yeah,
like,
no, it's yeah.
it just seems very, it seems like a lot of elements of that book are put in because Rowling needs something to happen. And
That's one of my biggest pet peeves in writing is when the writers inject things into the story because they need something to happen. So characters will do these like really insane things and you're like, why would they do that? Like, why would this happen? This is so unrealistic. And it's like, I know
yeah,
it's fiction, but like I still need that suspension of disbelief. Like, and you
I
can't throw it out the window,
That's my number one thing,
right?
because we talk about, because we have a Star Trek watch along podcast where Justin and I watch episodes, and our our most common complaint is probably like, yeah, this only happens because the script needs it to happen, because
Yeah.
this is not something that no logical person would ever do in this instance, and it only works out because Captain Kirk has main character syndrome in this episode.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't, he would be dead. Like,
Yeah.
these kinds of things would not normally happen. Or like a character who, up to a certain point, has behaved very logically or consistently, suddenly does something totally out of character, but they only do so because the script needs it to happen.
Yeah.
It's
That I call that lazy writing
it is lazy writing. Yeah, it is.
because you're not taking, like, there are other ways that you can generally write those things in so that it jives with the actual story and characters, and you just don't want to take the time to do it.
That's the difference between lazy writing and like a legitimately good plot twist. Is
Hmm.
like, oh yes, this character is acting out of character now, but if you write it well enough and there's a reason that may not be initially revealed, but if
Yeah.
it's eventually revealed, then it's like, oh, okay. Like, to bring it back to Rowling, Severus Snape at the end of the book series, that reveal makes sense because everything up to that point is recontextualized for sure,
Yeah.
but his actions at the end explain everything up to that. With the new revelation, now they still make sense, just in a different way. That's what I was trying to
Yes.
say.
Yes.
Those are the words that I was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I always know I've written a good plot twist if I have plot twisted my husband,
There you
because
go.
he's very good at figuring things out.
Hmm.
So often we'll watch the first like two episodes of a show and he'll already know like what's going to happen, and I'm like, "How do you know that?" And then it'll
Yeah.
happen and I'm like, "How did you just intuit that?" So if I will read him like a passage, I did that recently. I was like, I need to read you this because this is like a big plot twist in like book 3. And I read it to him and I was like, did you see that coming? He's like, oh my God. And I was like, yes. I'm like,
Got it.
I've succeeded. I was like, that means that it's a really good plot twist.
Well, I would imagine as
So,
an author, you do kind of have to steelman your own internal criticism, because if you can surpass that, then you know you've got a good story. You know,
yeah,
you have to be a little overly critical, I would think, because if
I
you're
am
not
my
hard
worst
on it,
critic.
yeah, if you're not hard on your work, everybody else will be. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I often will like have spells where I'll read and I'll be like, all of this, it's all trash. I can't believe I wrote this. Like, it all needs to go. And then I'll like sleep on it and wake up the next day and I'll be like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. If I like rework this and then like change this here, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to feel a bit better about it.
I forget which author said this, but it was something to the effect of like, the number one piece of advice I could give is never delete anything,
Yeah,
because
I
you
actually have a folder that's like old writing, like old chapters or old things. Sometimes I'll go back and read it and be like, I know why I cut this, or I know
yeah.
why this is not in the story
I
anymore.
wish I could remember who said it,
But
because I believe it was a he. I could be wrong, but he or she said this because they basically said, don't ever delete anything, because it might be 99% garbage, but there might be something in there that you can repurpose. And I believe they
yeah,
turned it into a novel,
yeah,
completely reworked everything, but that little kernel was the
yeah.
basis that became, and it was I wish I could remember, because it's not like it's a not a famous author.
Okay.
Can't remember. I'll remember 2 days
You'll remember
after this.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll definitely remember two
You'll be
days after
like,
this. But
yeah, you'll be like editing Jake here. It was this author.
Editor Jake
Yeah.
is a menace. Yeah, but very helpful. But yeah, so everyone, do yourself a favor if you have not already. Check out Literature and Lingerie. Also on YouTube, you can find her audio recordings at aretemedia.org, as well as all her links, to subscribe on all the platforms, because you totally should. Check out her Patreon. And if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe the Arete podcast, because why else are you here? if you
Why are you
haven't
here?
already.
Just
Yeah.
subscribe
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. Now, like it's right there. You don't even have
Like,
to stop watching.
comment,
Yes, I want your book comments in this one because if there's anything I know about book nerds is we all like talking about our books. So you should absolutely,
and like suggestions. What book should I read next?
yeah,
What,
absolutely. Yeah.
like what are some books that I should stick on my list?
Yep, absolutely. And then
What are
check out the
some must
sponsor.
reads?
Yeah, and check out the sponsors of this episode, which you saw previously. Revival, book one of the Unveiled book series by our friend Debbie Lynn, and then also the Goosebumps Crew podcast, because you're already a book nerd. Again,
Yeah.
if you aren't, why are you here?
I
I
grew up
can't
on
imagine.
Goosebumps, man. I
Oh,
love those books.
oh, you'd actually, if you haven't already, you would love the Goosebumps Crew podcast because you want to talk about deep dives. Holy crap. And they've gotten some pretty big names. Like I knew that they were I of course I knew they were winners already, but when they got Tim Jacobus, the cover artist for the original run of books, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they've made it now."
Yeah.
And they've only gotten bigger guests
Amazing.
on. So definitely check them out too. And Allie, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. We'll talk again, I'm sure. We'll
Yeah.
have fun several times. Welcome to the network. And
Thank
we
you.
will see you guys on the next episode of the Arete podcast. Until then, read more books.
Read more books, listen to more books, consume all the books.
It literally can't hurt. I mean, aside from paper cuts, it can't hurt you.
No.
And it's worth the pain.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next time.